Everybody, new studio, new intro. I'm just here to remind you guys before you listen to today's episode, make sure you follow the show and subscribe wherever you listen. If you watch the show on YouTube, make sure you subscribe there, you comment, you like, and you share. Also, follow my social media, all of it, both Instagrams, my Twitter, follow it all. Your life is to be consumed by my life. Tell everybody that you know about me. Start conversations with the fact that the Smoking Simian is your favorite podcast. Bombard everyone that you know and love with the Smoking Simian. Send them links day in and day out of my show, of the episodes, of my posts. Get thrown out of your house because the only thing that you care about is the Smoking Simian. Do it. Enjoy today's episode. Bye-bye. Hey, Pat.
How's it going, man?
How are you, sir?
Yeah, I am not bad. I am happy to be here. It's exciting.
Yeah, I'm happy to have you here. Yeah. We figured it out. This is, like I said before we started, this is the second time, or the second guest, in-person guest that I've had here. At this studio. And the first one was Shiv.
Was it really?
It was Shiv.
I cannot believe I am in the same company as you again. It happens so often. Do you know what they started doing to me at the mics?
What happened?
Because Shiv doesn't show up as often because he's got his stuff going on. He's got a new job.
Yeah.
And so now a lot of the guys like to treat me like the new Shiv. So they hit me with the small stuff they would hit him with. Like they put up a hand for a fist bump. And then when I go to bump it, they drop it and act like it never happened.
Oh, like, sons of bitches.
Yeah, so I'm like, oh, God, I'm the new Shiv.
I was going to suggest, because you know how every time he goes to like Jake and Johnny's or something, Steve will put like Aladdin on.
Yeah.
Like maybe they put some Irish jig music for you.
I'm going to have to run it by him.
Yeah.
See if I can get that started.
That's fucking awesome. But we were talking about how you had a podcast at one point.
Yeah.
How long did you do it for?
Not long. I couldn't even get episodes going because the style that I was going for.
Yep.
Like I said, I just couldn't get people to commit.
Right.
And, I'm going, the scene in Providence that I do, I'm like 30, 40 minutes from the mics. And a lot of those guys are a little more local than I am. So it's tough to get people to get like, oh, come out. And like setting the dates and everything was hard. Getting people who are local to commit, like my buddy, the chef, who's just like I'm not like a comedian.
Right.
I don't like talk into microphones and stuff. Like I get nervous about it, so I was having trouble getting them to commit, things like that. So I couldn't get it off the ground, but I wanted to really bad.
Yeah.
And now I just haven't had the time to revisit it, but I want to.
Right.
Like, it's definitely a lot of fun. I just have to get it going. It's the toughest part,
Yeah, I find that because, like I said, since I moved here, the show's kind of taken a little bit of a different identity, I guess.
Okay.
A lot more of the time. So when I first started the show, I was doing 3 episodes a week, which was too much.
3 episodes a week?
Yeah, it was brutal. Way too much. But I was doing 1 on Sunday nights,
right.
1 on Monday mornings, and 1 on Thursdays. And Thursdays was a guest.
Right.
And I started off with just my friends because ever since we were young, we were always like, one of us should start a YouTube channel or one of us should do a podcast. And I'm like, motherfuckers, I got it. Let's do this.
Right, yeah. It's like, all right, no one else wants to. I'll take it, yeah.
Exactly. And I decided when I first started the show that I wanted to get guests, definitely. But it started off with friends, and then through friends you meet other people, and I was fortunate to have I am fortunate to have a friend, John, who's been on the show a bunch of times, John Larkin, and he knows a bunch of people, so I've met a bunch of, and the more shit you do, the more people you meet.
That's how it goes.
Yeah.
And even when you're talking about, like, just meeting other people, that's a big part of, like, the comedy scene in general.
Yeah. Oh, hell yeah.
Like, being a stand-up, I've gotten opportunities just because I introduce myself, or, like, I know Shiv, and then he introduced me to other people, and, like, because Shiv's been like a big on me from the beginning. Same thing with Corey.
DeMayo or Corey Mayo. Yeah.
Yeah, he was big on me from the beginning too, and he introduced me to a bunch of other people. Just because he liked my stage presence, and I'm like, it's just getting to know people, and networking is like so important to building it.
Oh hell yeah.
And I think I just like with mine, I just started too early. So
Could
I
be.
didn't have enough connections to get it off the ground. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I mean, it could be that. It also, I mean, depending on the scope of who you want on your show,
Yeah.
right? Like, when I started the show, I didn't want in particular, this type of person. I've had, I'll tell you, some of the best talkers innately are professors. If you can find ways to reach out to professors, which is a lot of the time what I do,
Right.
I just send out like 40 fucking emails hoping that maybe two of them get back to me.
Right.
And then for whatever reason, well, it's their job, right? They teach, they talk. But if you're interested in whatever their specialty is, whatever they teach, they'll go forever. An hour is easy, or a half hour, however long you want it to do it.
Yeah. No, see, that's one I didn't think of. I didn't think there was one like high school teacher.
Yeah.
That I was like, oh, let me reach out to them because he taught economics. Is like the one class I took with him, but like I liked him as a person while he was my teacher. So I was like, oh, that'd be like a great guy.
Yeah.
To get on, like he understands stuff and he can speak honestly. He doesn't have to speak as a teacher. He can just speak as a person with this understanding. Like, so I was like, oh, that's just interesting. So I was trying to get interesting people, but
right.
Small town in Connecticut.
I feel you.
Yeah, interesting people are
hard to come by.
Hard to come by. A lot of them are like, oh, I'm going to get on there and talk about politics. I'm like, it's not a political thing.
Sure.
I'm not a political guy. I don't know what's going on.
That's the thing. When you start something new, everybody's got ideas for you.
Yeah.
Like, more or less unwarranted. Like, like if I'm getting an idea from somebody, I want them to be in the same space that I'm in. If you said, hey, here's an idea, try this in your bit, I'd be like, okay, that makes sense. We do comedy together.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But like my dad, he just comes up to me sometimes and he's like, he's got an accent. So he's like, Anton, I have this great idea for your comedy. I'm like, all right, Dad, cool. But like,
so then it's not just me who gets that from like, I know it's got to be other comics where it's just coming up with, you can use that. And I'm like, I'm not going to,
right.
But thanks.
Yeah, thanks.
Like, yeah, you try, but trust me, I know what jokes I can get away with.
Right.
And that's not nearly as funny as you think it is.
That's like saying the time that you're spending going to mics, the time that you're spending thinking about comedy and writing jokes and all that shit is like not useful at all. If just some random guy can come up to you and be like, hey, try this. Like,
yeah, it doesn't mean as much. Like, I've done, I did one show, I don't want to say names or what the show was or anything, but like I did one, and there was some people who were like, "Oh, I don't do open mics. And, like I just do, like these level shows,
right?
Like bringer level shows and stuff." And they were like, "I don't do those. I just do these." And I was like, oh, "Man, like why do you not do them?" He's like, "Oh, I just don't. I don't like the atmosphere. Like it's hard to do well there, so I don't worry about doing it." And I was like, "But that's what's gonna make you." Like if you want this, those are so important to be doing because they give you the opportunity to go up and like bomb for free. You know what I mean? Like just
bomb in front of your peers, which is better than bombing in front of an audience that paid money.
I've got tons of feedback. You go to a place that's not designed for an audience in terms of an open mic, like Pub.
Right.
Pub is not designed. It's for comedians. It's not for people to come in and spectate.
Right.
But if you get like those 2 or 3 people that are in the audience and you get them to laugh or you get other comedians to laugh, that's so much more valuable there than going to a place with a ton of audience and doing good.
Yeah. Oh yeah. When you have a big audience, you can get away with stupid things.
Oh yeah.
Like you can get away with making the crowd laugh by you laughing. Yeah. Which is, there's a place for it. I'm sure you can work that into a well thought out act. You can work a laugh that works with the crowd or whatever. But when you have a small crowd, that barely works, and when you have a small crowd that is all comics that are critical, who are also going up there to work on things that happens in an open mic, that's basically what you're doing.
Yeah.
You're performing for a bunch of people that might pay attention, but most of the time they're worrying about what they're working on,
Yeah, and they it's not that they don't care, but because you do the same thing when you go yourself. You know, you're not always there focused on what they got going on. Like, especially like me, I work in a restaurant, so
Right.
you know, Sunday, like my off days are random days almost. So if I get the chance to be working on comedy, sometimes that first chance is at the mic. So I'm like, I gotta write jokes here and now, so I can't listen to these guys. It's not because I don't care or respect them, but I'm here to work too. You know what I mean? So
Right.
you can't really blame other comics for doing the same thing. Like,
Yeah, I can't imagine being serious about comedy and not going to open mics. I mean, I guess I could see it once you get to a certain level
yeah,
and you can pretty much do a spot anywhere you want, right?
yeah,
It's a little different than doing it, but you're doing the same thing that you would do in an open mic. You're still working stuff out. You're just at a spot because you're that funny already. If you're Mark Norman and you can call fucking, Stand Up New York and do a drop-in spot of some completely new material, you're probably going to kill.
right, because you're Mark Moore.
Right.
Yeah.
But in that guy's head, he's like, all right, that's still pretty new. I can work on it here and there.
Yeah.
It's the same shit. If you're not going to open mics at the beginning, what the fuck are you doing? You're not serious about it.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing that I got from just being like, how do I get into it?
Yeah.
Because I love stand up already, so I'm like, oh, I gotta figure out how to pursue it. And the biggest tip anyone will tell you is, oh, you need to get on stage as much as possible.
Yeah.
And the open mics are the fastest way to get that done because no one can stop you from going up unless they have like a capacity cap. You know, some places do, but they almost never hit it.
Right.
Anyway, so you're usually fine. And then, so it's getting up at the open mics because you need to get sharpened to get on shows. And getting on shows doesn't happen that fast. It takes a lot of time.
Oh, hell yeah.
To get on a show that they ask you to be on. Not like a bringer, but like something where you're like, the booker puts you on. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, hell yeah. I mean, that does take time. You got to, every time I try to get in on one of those because, we're on the Facebook groups.
Yeah.
And they're always like, looking for comics, whatever. Anytime I try to get in on one of those and it doesn't happen, which is more often than not because you don't know everybody that put these things out, it always kind of reminds myself that you need to be good enough to be put on a show, number one. And then number two, once you get to that point, you need to be good enough to get paid, which is how you become a professional, which is a complete other level. Like, anytime I think, I'm like, damn, I'm doing all this shit, I'm not getting paid for it. And then I'm like, but wait, I'm not good enough to get paid yet.
Right.
I think I'm good. You're supposed to think you're good.
Oh, yeah. It takes certain... I don't want to say, like, ignorance, but you have to have confidence.
Yeah.
If you don't believe in yourself on stage, like, they pick up on it.
Oh, hell yeah.
So you have to believe that you're being funny. Even if it bombs, you have to be like, there's got to be something there. Otherwise, I wouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
I may not know how to get there right now, but there's got to be something. Like, and it's definitely tough to take a joke and be like, that you wrote yourself. You're like, I came up with this. And to scrap it.
Yeah, oh, hell yeah.
Is so hard.
Now, do you scrap jokes? Do you, like, is there a joke where you're like, I'll never go back to that?
I don't think... There isn't one I can think of off the top of my head that I had like that. I used to have, like, almost a full 5 minutes on going to the grocery store.
Right.
As a kid. Like, you get to push the carriage and everything. And then I did it, like, 2 or 3 times, and I would just realize, I was like, I'm not good enough I'm not as good a comedian as I need to be to pull this joke off. So I had to, like, put it on the back burner and be like, the premise is funny, but skill level, I'm not there to do this joke yet.
Right.
Like, it's too long. There's too many tags on it. Like, so I had to shorten all my jokes. And now I think I have my longest joke that's like a bit itself. Is probably about a minute, maybe a minute 15.
Yeah.
Is the longest, like, individual topic type thing.
Wow. So you tightened it up.
Well,
different joke.
Different jokes.
Yeah.
But I had
tighten the
jokes.
style up a little.
Yeah. I had to because I have to simplify my approach.
Right.
Because right now it's too complex.
Yeah.
And I was doing that at like maybe 2 or 3 months in. I realized I just can't do this joke.
Right.
But since I put that off to the side, I've gotten so much better, and like people laugh at more of my stuff. My timing is infinitely better than it used to be.
Right.
Stage presence is better because I'm just getting like more pop on my stuff by dumbing it down.
Yeah.
Was a big thing. Yeah.
Well, you get, like we're talking about, you get super refined because you're getting like immediate feedback.
Yeah.
And it's not bullshit. It's usually not bullshit feedback. You know,
yeah.
you know what I'm saying? It's not. They're not like the crowd won't blow smoke up your ass. Like if you're not funny, unless you're, I don't know, some fucking big personality that you can say anything. You can read the phone book and you're funny.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a little different. You know, like Bernie Mac. That guy could, read a fucking menu to me, and I'd die laughing.
Just has the right energy. Yeah.
Right, and that doesn't take anything away from all the other stuff that makes him a great comic. But he was just blessed with a fucking funny-ass voice and funny-ass demeanor. Joey Diaz, another guy like that, who could say anything.
Oh, dude. Yeah.
And it's like, how the fuck do you not laugh?
Oh, yeah. that's he's so good at that. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, and Bernie Mac, too, where they're just, like, they're on point for their stuff. Like, whatever it is, they're funny. And I'm like, I don't have that
Yeah.
personally. So I'm like, because I'm, like, super laid back about everything. So even if I go like a high energy thing, like it's nothing
Right.
compared to what they do. Like,
Yeah.
For me to be like, oh, I'm bringing it. Like I had a Red Bull 2 minutes ago.
Yeah.
now I'm going up on stage with a lot of energy. It's nothing like them. Like,
Right.
Even Cat Williams.
Oh yeah.
He'd like
sweating like a pig at the
I
end of his
know.
sets.
Dude, that's the
Yeah.
biggest thing I remember about a stand-up. So I'm like, dude, you're drenched by
Yeah.
the end of it. Like,
Oh hell yeah. Yeah, I mean it's to go back on when you were talking about writing bits and kind of shortening them up and stuff. I think what happens when you first start out is you have 5 minutes at these open mics.
yeah.
So you kind of want to have one long bit, like a big chunk that you can just eat up the whole 5 minutes with. Because, at least in my mind, this is the way I thought of it. Because when you watch your favorite comics do an hour, you almost forget that they have a full hour.
Oh yeah.
You know, like they can have moments where there's lulls in the laughs. They can have moments where they're trying to tell the audience something, make them think about something, and then go back into the laughs. Whereas for us, when you do a spot, or when anyone does a spot, when any comic does a spot, they have 10 minutes or 5 minutes or 7 minutes, and it has to be like laughs that whole fucking time.
Oh yeah.
You know?
But that's tough to understand. You don't get that until you start doing it consistently. Because at first you're just like, oh, either maybe I'm not funny, or maybe these guys didn't think it was funny. But yeah, it's understanding like, oh, you gotta pack a punch.
Yeah.
Every chance you get, and so you can't do 5 minutes on pushing a carriage.
Yeah.
Because no one cares about you for that long.
Exactly.
Like you have to change what you're talking about to be interesting.
Yeah.
And it's hard to do. It's hard to understand that. I think for me, at least, that was hard for me to get at first because, like I like stories. So I tell a lot of stories, so even the minute 15, like I'm like, oh, there's a story there where I'm getting a little bit of crowd interaction, like, and it's all just a short little thing. But Tom Segura is my all-time favorite. He's like
Really?
why I do stand-up comedy.
Okay.
He's just a great storyteller.
Right.
And the topics he talks about are just out of this world. But he's super inappropriate and then doesn't have to be inappropriate at all.
Yeah.
Like, it's just a creative train of thought. His demeanor, I love, where he's just like, I'm funny without bringing high energy. It's just, my thoughts are what make people laugh.
Yeah.
And that's awesome to me.
I find that there's different levels, and this isn't anything, but since we're talking about comedy, there's different types of mastery. I shouldn't say levels.
Right.
There's different types. Like, when I think of, like, a spoken word comic, like a well-written, like, almost like a script that they've come up with where every word means something. I think of George Carlin. I think of Chris Rock.
Yeah.
I think of Jerry Seinfeld. And then you have, like, the masters of, I don't know, like Deadpan, Norm Macdonald.
Yes.
And Mitch Hedberg, Greg Fitzsimmons. Like, these guys have super tight writing that they don't need to be energetic. And then you
Right.
got the energy guys that we spoke about earlier. So there's a ton of different styles, and I'm finding that in the beginning of comedy, like the very, very beginning, 2 months in or something, you're kind of worried about finding a style to match the people that you like.
Yeah.
But the most important part for the I would say first few years, is to just be funny. Like, do it in a way that it's creative and it's, I guess, conducive to how you are as a person. Like you said, you're laid back. You wouldn't go up there and do jumping jacks and fucking scream or whatever.
Yeah, right.
Like, you obviously have a style, but you need to develop it to be funny. If you're developing a style before the funny, then, I mean, I don't know, you might get caught with something else. You might come up with something else, you know?
Yeah. No, that makes tons of sense. And like, I've gone up, like I said, with higher energy, but high energy for me is just like working different sides of the room.
Right.
Like my crowd work, I'm doing crowd work over here, and then telling one of my jokes, or I'm pulling the crowd in over here and then telling one of my jokes. I just did open mic on Sunday, Boomerangs, and they had it booked just weird. It was Game 7 for the Celtics, which was a big deal already.
Right.
Then they had a band playing at 9.
No way.
and yeah, and our mic was supposed to start at 7, didn't start till like after 7:30.
Damn.
And so it was super tight. No one was there to watch the comics that showed up. And I had the bullet, and I was like, I just told the other comedians, I was like, guys, I'll do whatever I can to get them to pay attention, but it's not going to happen. Like, they don't care what I have to say. So that was probably the most energetic I've been on stage, and it's just because I'm like, the only way I'm going to be able to grab their attention, even for the other guys, is to be more energetic than I typically would be.
Right.
Like, and that's...
You're kind of forced out of your comfort zone in the moment.
Yeah, and it worked, but it's not like what I normally do.
Right.
So it's tougher, but it's good for me to be like, okay, I can do it if I had to.
Right.
But it's not like my regular going up on stage and this is what I'm doing, you know?
Yeah. But it at very least shows you that you can do it, and if you want, you can work on it.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it was something that you did, and you're like, all right, I was able to do something with that. At least we have a benchmark. I can build off of it. It's something I haven't done before. Like, I'll give you an example. Similar to what you're saying, obviously, in the beginning, most of the shit that you do is in front of nobody or in some shitty situation. But I think I had told you that I did a show for Floyd, Think Floyd. Floyd is J.B. Smooth's brother.
Oh, yeah, you were telling me about that. Yeah.
So on Fridays, he rents out a room in a Best Western in West Haven, Connecticut, off the highway. Construction going on in front of the building.
Such a good start already.
Yeah, in the basement. I remember I walked in and I saw the signs for, Think Funny, comedy show. My fucking picture's on there and everything. And I asked the lady at the desk, I'm like, I'm here for the show. That's me. And she's like, all right, you want to go there to the basement, across? And I'm like, okay. So, I get there and it's this fucking bland-ass room. Obviously, it's a Best Western. It's like where some fucking group of corporate shills go and talk about fucking business or whatever. And there's like a water cooler and, it's a weird room.
Right.
Generic art on the wall.
I was going to say, you can't dim the lights. It's
No.
Just, you look like you're in a conference room.
Yeah. Exactly. And the people that showed up, so the show was supposed to start on the flyer. It said 8 p.m. Floyd wasn't there till like 9. And he's got all the shit. He's got the microphone, the speakers, but there was nobody there anyway as far as the audience goes.
Yeah.
There were 2 people that came downstairs, 2 guys. They came downstairs and they're like, what's going on here tonight? And we're like, there's a comedy show at some point. We don't know when. This is like 8:30. We're like, we don't know when, but feel free to come back around 9:30 maybe. I don't know. And they came back, them and their wives. 4 people in the audience. Those 4 people.
Oh, my God.
That was it. 4 of them and then like 10 comics. More.
Oh.
All comics.
Fuck.
And I went up there because in my mind, I was like, okay, because he said, when I hit him up on Facebook, he's like, I asked him, like, how long do we have? How long are the sets? He goes, 15 minutes. So in my mind, I'm like, wow, okay, Think Floyd, 15 minutes, this is going to be cool. I show up, it's what I'm telling you now.
Yeah.
So I'm like, the whole time driving there, the whole hour, I'm just going over 15 minutes worth of material that I think I can go up there and do because I'd never done that long.
That's a long time.
Hell yeah, to be funny.
Yeah, yeah.
So, eventually, once I realized the whole situation, I'm like, fuck this. I'm just going to go up there and fuck around.
Oh, yeah.
And I did but that's something I had never done up until that point. Even for open mics.
Right.
Open mics, I would be sure to go up there and, like, work on the shit that I wanted to work on, whether it be a new joke or I'm setting a set up for a show later on.
Right.
I'm going there with a purpose. Like this time I was like, let me fuck around. I had a great set. All the comics were laughing. Those 4 people were laughing. And it was like, I have that ability now. Now I have a benchmark. I can build off that.
And I've done the same thing. I've seen you.
Yeah.
When you go up just at the mics. And I'm like, oh, he's in his work.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't give a fuck about anything else that's going on. He doesn't care about people who aren't listening. He cares about like, these are the jokes I'm telling because I'm working on these jokes.
Right.
But I've done the same thing. Not for 15.
No, I didn't do 15 either.
Oh, okay.
They were like 8. We'll just do 8 because there were so many of us.
Yeah.
He's like, we'll just fucking do 8. There's nobody here.
The 4 audience members.
Yeah.
There's 10 people.
Yeah.
15 minutes. They'd be so burnt out.
Oh, they sat for the whole show too.
Oh my god.
They sat there from the beginning. Watched all of us. There was some fucking old guy that, like, he doesn't do it that often, but he was there. He knows Floyd, and it was a great night. And when I sat down there, I'm like, this is bullshit. At first, I'm like, I get it. This is comedy, and then after everything, and then after the show, the host was like, hey, you're pretty funny. I got a spot on Wednesdays. I'm going to keep you in mind. Follow me on here, whatever. So then, you know what I'm saying? You never know.
That's
never know
how it goes. That's like, I did a bringer because I was like, I need to build the connection. I was like, I want to build a connection with other comics. And then I've signed up for another one. And, sometimes I'm like, I don't want to do it. Like, I've already done it. I don't need to do it with somebody else. Like, because now I'm booked on shows.
Right.
Not like a ton of shows, but I've been booked. Like later in the year, just a bunch of stuff that I'm on, and I'm like, so I don't need to do bringers anymore. But even people have told me that's what happens. They're like, oh, you do like 2 or 3 of those, and then if you're a comic who's been doing it or does it a lot, where you're like working at it, then like you get burned out.
Yeah.
By that stuff, and like you feel like you don't want it. Like I shouldn't have to convince people to come see me. Like they should just be coming to watch a good show.
Right.
Like.
Yeah, bringers are tough.
Yeah.
Bringers are tough because not only do you have to get people to go, but the people that go are your friends and family.
Yeah.
So, like, if you bomb in front of them, it's kind of worse than bombing in front of complete strangers.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, if it's a bunch of people that you might never ever see again, then fuck it. You had a bad set. Who cares?
Yeah.
That happened to me last Tuesday. Yeah. Last Tuesday, I did a spot in Boston, and it was all, like, high energy. It was pretty much a black room. It was a place called Macumba Latina. You've probably seen it on Facebook. Tickle Me Tuesdays.
I have seen it. I haven't been, but I've seen it.
Yeah. It's predominantly a black room, and which is, it's cool, but they all had super high energy. And there's times where I can go up there and do that, but not like these dudes were fucking... The host was Cool Bubba Ice. He was on Def Jam Comedy back in the day.
Oh, man. All right, yeah.
And he's as animated as it gets.
Oh, yeah.
And, what's the other dude? Mr. Coos. You know who that is? You met him?
Kuze?
Yes. Yeah. He was there. He bugs out, so...
Yeah, I've met him a few times. We know each other. He was Mr. Kuze. That's why I don't take my notebook up on stage anymore.
Yeah.
He was the first person. He just popped into a mic, and Corey Mayo introduced me to him. Was like, he's got great stage presence.
Yeah.
And so I just sat at the bar and talked to him at I think at Pub.
Okay.
Pub, and he was like, do you bring your notebook up on stage? I was like, oh yeah, I haven't been doing it that long. Like I don't want to forget stuff. And he's like, don't do that anymore. He's like, go up tonight without the notebook, and if you feel like you need it, let me know. I'll bring the notebook up to you. And this is the guy who's been doing Like, he puts on shows.
Right.
Like, he's been doing it, like, I don't know, 10 plus years.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, he's been doing it a long time. And he's doing shows, a couple shows a week he puts on. He's in it.
Yeah.
And so he was like, "Oh, if you need the help, I'll bring you help." And then I did the 7 to 8 minutes, however long it was, without the notebook. First time doing it, and when I got off stage, he was like, "You were good." He was like, "Without the notebook, I would have never known that was your first time going without the notebook." He's like, "You did totally fine."
Mm-hmm.
And that was a month and a half, 2 months into me doing comedy. And since then, I'm like, I don't even care if I can't remember my jokes. I go without the notebook because I'm like, I can do it.
Right.
So I should at least try. Like,
yeah, well, it's also part of, practice how you play, right?
Yeah.
Practice how you fight, whatever analogy you want to use. But, yeah, I mean, from the beginning, I would force myself to record on my phone.
Yeah.
Just so I wouldn't go into my notes. Everyone's like, on Memorial Day, it was a Monday, there were 4 of us, 4 comics at the place that I usually go to.
Yeah.
And the host was like, he runs the show, so he's like, you guys just fuck around down here, do whatever you want. And I did a completely new joke that I hadn't tried yet. And the last part was tough because I want to read it really fast.
Yeah.
Because it's part of the joke. I wanted to, like, get it out of the way quickly. But it's, like, a lot of words, so I had forgotten. So I just looked at it and read it off just to fucking say it. But for the most part, I mean, you don't want to have your notebook. But then you see, I saw a short of Mark Norman, because he always puts up YouTube shorts.
Yeah.
Mark Norman with a fucking notepad, checking things off, and I mean, he's not reading it. He's not sitting there like, reading it.
Yeah.
He just kind of has a list and then checks it off and then fucking goes. So it's like, who knows? You know what I'm saying?
And I've seen, like, the shorts and stuff like that, and when it's someone like him, he's got so many jokes that he could do.
Right.
Like, if you watch one of his hour specials on YouTube,
it's ridiculous.
He's talking about something else every 30 to 45 seconds.
Yep.
So there are so many punches that he has, and I'm like, you have to have a notebook with you.
Yeah.
Because you're covering so much ground.
Yeah.
Like, how do you keep track? Like, I can do it, but I just come off stage and I make my notes really quick. Like, I don't talk to anybody.
Sure.
Just, do the fist bump, handshake. If someone stops me, they stop me. But otherwise, I just sit down and I make all my notes really quick, like, based on feeling. Where I'm just like, that worked, that didn't work. Like, just a brutal analysis of, like, in the moment, how did I feel like that went?
Right.
Is what I do a lot, yeah.
Do you find that after you listen back or watch back whatever you did, say you had a set that you didn't think was great, and then you listen back to it or watch it again, do you ever like, you know what, it wasn't that bad? Like, maybe my initial thought of it was worse than it actually was.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
That's happened. I don't get the chance to record everything. A lot of times I'll just look at the room and be like, is this worth recording?
Right.
Like that mic I did where there was like a concert in Game 7 and everything on Sunday, I was like, I'm not recording this. Like, first off, I'd be lucky if I could even hear the recording. And second of all, if I could hear the recording, like hear myself, I'm not going to be able to hear any of the laughs because there's so many people in here talking because they're just not interested. So
right.
Like, I won't record stuff like that where I'm like, this is guaranteed to go bad. So it's not worth me going through the effort.
Right.
Of recording it.
I feel you.
Yeah, but I've definitely had some where I was like, I'll be able to listen to it, and I've recorded myself. I did a spot in Worcester, and I recorded it, and I felt in the moment, I was like, that went bad. And then I listened to it, and I was like, it didn't go that, but like my timing was okay. Like there was good things I could take out of it.
Right.
Where I was like, I didn't suck. But then there's other times where you listen to it and I'm like, that's as bad as I thought it was. Like, maybe
right.
worse. But like, I get off stage and I feel pretty good, and then I listen to it and I'm like, I don't know what the fuck I was thinking. That was awful.
Yeah. It is funny trying to convey your own sense of humor to other people.
Yeah.
Because, you know Lenny Bruce?
Yes. Yes.
The like legendary fucking
Yeah.
patient zero in comedy.
Right.
He attributes a lot of what he did on stage to one of his friends. I read his long ass biography,
Okay.
and I forget the friend's name, but he was basically up there doing the same mannerisms, kind of doing an impersonation of his friend talking to him and their friends.
Right. Right.
Which, when you think about it, is kind of the purest form of, I guess, the purest form of comedy, because there's very little censoring.
Right.
Now, obviously, there's some things you can't say that you say with your friends on stage.
Right. Yeah.
But to be able to, I guess, encapsulate what makes you funny around your friends. Whatever you do that makes you funny, whether it's your animated or the words that you choose to say or your puns, you make fun of shit. If you're able to do that in front of a big audience of people you don't know, that's legit. That's when you're getting pretty fucking good.
Oh yeah, and I've done it. I did it where I've got a few jokes about my little sister.
Right.
Just because, like, we get along. She knows about the jokes, but I was telling them, just talking about. I was like, "Oh, my sister, like, she's stupid." Because, for one, I'm an older brother. So I'm like, I could say that, all right? She's my little sister. That's, like, part of my job.
Right.
I'm allowed to say whatever I want. And so I would just call her dumb, and my aunts were, like, in the audience one time listening with my sister there, and they stopped my dad. They were like, oh, my God, that's so awful. And my dad had to be like, no, it's fine, all right? Like,
yeah, it's jokes.
She knows the jokes are coming.
Yeah.
And it's all true stuff. I had someone the other day, they were like, not a comic, just a coworker. They were like, you know, if you didn't tell all the stories or the jokes of, like, what other people say to you or have done to you, you wouldn't have that much material. And I'm like, first off, that's not true.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've got jokes, I just don't tell them to you guys. Like,
Right.
Tell them to the comedians. But also, it's like, that's just... I'm just reporting the funny stuff that happens to me. I'm like, I thought it was funny when this person said that. Someone else is going to find this funny.
Right.
Like, it was even if I was the one who said it or not, like, the only difference is that I don't take credit for it. I'm like, I had a coworker come up to me and say this, or I had my sister come up to me and say this. Like, it's all true stuff. I'm just not twisting it in a way because it's real. Like, if I'm telling a story about somebody, it's because it actually happened.
Right.
And that's what makes it so funny, because it's like, I can't believe someone said that. Like,
yeah, I mean, some of the best comedy is comedians telling you what happened to them in a certain situation or in some period in their life. Like right now, before you were here, actually throughout the whole day, you mentioned storytelling. I wanted to bring him up. Ali Sadiq, you ever listen to him?
Yes.
He sits down, he's doing sit-down comedy, and he's just talking like he's on a porch.
Right.
Like you and him are having a fucking drink, and he's just telling stories. And he's great at that. But right now, his newest special, it's on YouTube, which I want to talk about in a second. Comedians putting their shit on YouTube. He's basically talking about what brought him to jail. He did 6 years in jail or something.
Oh, wow.
And the special's called Domino Effect. So it's all like an idea, a central idea about this period. I think it's like from 10 to like whenever he got locked up, 18 or 16 or whatever the fuck it was. And it's basically his life. Every aspect of his life. It's a big fucking story for like an hour and a half. Phenomenal special. He's able to go off on tangents and little taglines and talk about certain situations. But it's one of those instances where he's just talking about his life in a funny way. He's made it very funny. Right? And when you hear some of the shit, another level of mastery there is being able to convey a pretty negative fucking situation in a funny way.
Yeah.
Like he talks about living with his gangbanging dad and, things where you're like, God damn, that's rough. Him selling crack and all these things. But it's like funny the way he's saying it. And then you got like, Eddie Murphy, who put out two of the best specials of all time.
Oh, yeah.
And he's talking about, his aunt falling down the steps and his fucking uncle burning the yard down when he starts a grill.
Oh, yeah.
It's all about their lives.
Well, and it's just... I mean, how many stories can one person have? They can't... Like, the comic isn't doing everything funny that happens in their life. Like,
right.
And I've heard... I can't remember who said it, but I definitely heard it somewhere. So I take no credit for it. But they're like, oh, the funniest person you know is never going to be a comedian.
Right.
It's always, the weird uncle.
Yeah.
Or the goofy coworker. Like, it's always going to be somebody else that makes you laugh more than any comedian ever will. Because they're funny.
Yeah.
And the comedian just sees that and is like, I'm going to tell someone about this.
Yeah.
Like, and that's, so the stories have to come from somewhere. It's just, you take the funny stuff that happens to you and talk about it. Like,
yeah.
Because it's funny. Like,
there's also something to be said, though, about, like, funny stories that aren't real.
Yeah.
Like just fucking, the one that comes to mind for me, one of my biggest influences is George Carlin, personally.
Right.
I love pretty much, every special that there is. I've watched probably all of them. But there's one where he talks about, it's in like 2005. I forget what, Life is Worth Losing is the name of the special.
Okay.
And he ends it with this bit called, I think it ends up being called Uncle Dave. It's like a 15-minute bit, and he starts off with talking about how anytime he hears about a natural disaster, he hopes it gets bigger and bigger and gets blown out of like crazy proportions. He wants more people to die, more floods. Like, it's insane. It's Carlin.
Yeah.
It's Carlin later in his life. And he goes on and on and on, and it ends with, like, the space-time continuum splitting, and there's a bunch of dead Uncle Daves falling through the sky. All the Uncle Daves come back, and it ends in this really fucking extravagant way. But it's so far-fetched and goofy, but also, like, hard-hitting, and you see where he's coming from, kinda.
Yeah.
Like,
where he just took something that was funny and just blew it.
Yeah.
Like, he blew it out of proportion. Just like, it was like, how can I expand on this and make it crazy?
Yeah.
But it starts somewhere.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, Uncle Dave is a real guy.
Right.
You know what I mean? He may not be Uncle Dave, but he's a real guy. Like,
Right.
And that's where it stems from. He was just like, I'm just going to go nuts.
Forever. That's one of the best. I wish we could watch it, but that's one of the best fucking... And crazy thing about that joke. So, in 2001, George Carlin recorded a special on September 10th, 2001, called I Kinda Like It When a Lot of People Die. Right? So the day before 9/11, and that bit was the closer for that.
Oh my God.
But when 9/11 happened, the day after, he's like, all right,
Yeah.
we won't release this. We won't do it. Like,
That's a good call.
yeah. He ended up doing a similar set later on in the year, same year. It was like actually a couple months after. Okay. He ended up doing a similar set, but he that started in that special. And then so many years later, I think in 2016, his daughter put out the special, just the recording.
Right.
And that one is arguably more brutal than the one that ended up coming out. However, I think the one that ended up coming out is funnier, if that makes sense.
I think I know what you mean. Yeah,
it's funnier. The other one was more like in your face, venom. I'm actually angry about this.
Yeah.
This other one was like, I'm angry about it, but I'm an old man. Like, let's have some fun with it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a big difference.
Yeah.
In those two things. There's a lot of people who come out that I've seen at mics here and there. People who I have no idea who they are. I've seen them once, maybe twice. And they'll come out and they're high energy, but they're just mad about stuff. Like,
right.
Dude, you're just kind of making people uncomfortable. Like, it's not that it's not funny, but whoa, you know, and then...
It's a fine line.
Yeah, and it's tough.
Yeah.
To figure out. That's why the mics are important.
Right.
You know?
And there's comics that can get away with it. which is
Yeah.
another, again, I keep going back to that, different types of mastery. Like, there's some comics who can say some of the most fucked up shit. Like another influence of mine is Bill Hicks. I don't know if you ever watched any Bill Hicks.
Clips, but not any
Yeah.
specials or anything. Yeah.
Yeah, so he's another one who can just fucking... I mean, he's screaming Sieg Heil on stage going like this. Like,
Yeah, I can't do that.
no, of course not. Of course not. And I'm sure he couldn't do that in the beginning, but he found a way to make it so that he could do that type of thing. People are expecting this Bill Hicks guy to go up there and say fucking God knows what. Same thing with Carlin, same thing with Kinnison. Like,
And that's
yeah.
what's good with their style.
Yeah.
Which I don't think I could do it. I like to give the twist, but I could not go as hard as those guys go.
Right.
Because first off, they're like masters at the craft. You know, so that like that's a big reason why they can pull it off is because they know how to do it. I don't even know how to start.
Yeah.
So I've said I have one joke where I make like one tiny little jab about what is it? Single moms.
Right.
And I made one tiny little jab about it, and I ran it by a single mom that I know first. So it was like she's like, oh, it's funny. I can see the joke there. Like, yeah, it's funny.
Right.
And so then I tell that joke, and that's turned audience. I've felt it just in the 5 to 7 that I've done, where I said that in the middle of it, and people shut down on it, and I was like, well, it's gonna be a rough 2.5 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I lost you guys right there, but that's fine. That's how it goes. You know,
Right.
Like,
there's times where that 5 minutes couldn't be longer.
oh yeah.
Like, you know, you thought this was gonna work, and it's just not working at all. That definitely happens.
That's a comfort thing I've gotten better with.
Yeah.
From hanging out with other comics, getting to understand, reading energies.
Right.
In the room and
reading
understanding the room. Like, this probably isn't going to work, or this is how you have to approach how to do your set here. This is how you have to do it. Some are like way more. You don't have to come as hard because everyone is tuned in, and they're there paying attention to the comic on stage, having a good time, almost regardless of what's being said. They're just laughing because they're laughing.
Right. Sometimes you just have a good fucking crowd.
Oh yeah. And it's super important.
Yeah.
But there's other times where the audience will be in and out, and you're like, all right, now I got to bring it a little bit differently because that's how it is. Or a dead room, and then you make the call. You're like, do I try and go hard
revive
in
this
a dead room, or
Yeah.
do I just practice some normal stuff or some new stuff, and then get out of here, just get some reps in.
Yeah.
Get in my 5 minutes.
Yeah, that's a good point, because there are times where the crowd will just laugh at fucking anything.
Yeah.
And there's times where you got to work for it a little bit, and then there's times where it is a dead fucking room.
Yeah.
And now you can either make the decision to be like, hey, I'll just say my jokes like I fucking say them.
Yeah.
And, at least I'm getting work in. At least I'm doing something. Or you can try and work on one of those other muscles that we were talking about. Something that you found out that you can work on now.
Right, trying, do I go high energy just to see how it goes high energy?
Mm-hmm.
Or do I go super laid back to see how it goes super laid back? And sometimes it's just like, see what the comics think. Because they're listening. They're not tuned in, but they're listening a lot of the times. Especially once you get in with them. And they kind of see that, like, oh, okay, like these guys, he's been grinding.
Yeah.
He's been putting in a lot of work, 4 or 5 mics a week, really, really doing good. At that stuff, they'll start to pay attention a little bit, just to give you that honest feedback. Or if you're buddies with the host is like, he's always paying attention.
Right.
9 times out of 10, he's paying attention because he might be the only audience member.
And they need to have some shit to say in between comics.
Yeah.
So, like, if you said something that, stuck in their mind, they have a little tag, then go up there and be like, yeah, you're right, Pat, blah, 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 blah,
And And yeah, that's a good point. And
Yeah.
that's a skill for a comedian to come up and use as they get going in their set. So that's why, like, I try to at least pay attention to a lot of time, at least to the host when they're on stage, because they're gonna say something right before they bring you up 9 times out of 10, and they're gonna give you something to go off of.
Right.
Like last night, Trevor Dion was hosting. He pulled me up on stage, and he was just like, he looks like he's dressed like a drug dealer. And he was like, a Pat O'Connor, and I was like, so I got on stage, I was like, I look like I'm dressed like a drug dealer, but like I'm doing like pretty good.
Right.
Like I'm not like a poor drug dealer.
Right.
Like, so it gives you that little bit to work with if you're paying attention to them too.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm finding that, I think I knew this going into comedy, but to really apply it, and that is to really apply it is the difference maker. And what that is kind of starting with something just to get people laughing off the rip.
Yeah.
An observation, something about the host, something about the crowd, this guy in the crowd, a one-liner you wrote fucking 2 days ago,
Right.
Making fun of yourself. Like last show I did in New York, I went up there and I was wearing a bucket hat and like I had like a fucking pullover sweatshirt on. So I'm like, today I decided to dress like a dad who stands at the end of his driveway after he's done doing yard work and waves at everybody. So like, that's just something stupid to get the crowd hooked, and then now you can go right into your bit.
Yeah, and because they enjoy it. I did it again just last week. I think it was. I did it. There was a group of like college age guys there, like dressing how frat guys dress, wearing sweatshirt, sweatpants, fucking the sandals with socks, like all
Right.
like just like like whatever. When you're like a frat guy, like picture that. That's what they look like.
Exactly.
And I just happened to wear like what's it called, a fucking like party shirt with a t-shirt underneath.
Yeah.
And one of the people in the audience was like, "Oh, you know these guys?" While I was up on stage, I was like, "No, I don't know them. I just picked my douchiest shirt."
Yeah.
That's all I did. Like, and now they're friends. Like,
Right.
And it's small stuff like that just like, oh, you just make a quick observation. I did one where a comic went up and just to start off, just killed the room. Like like just no one, everyone checked out.
I've done that before.
Yeah, where you just drain the energy completely.
Yeah, come out with an abortion joke or something, just off rip.
Yeah, and this was all stuff where it was like, it was about like having sex with his mom or something.
Nice.
It was a rough thing to hear about at 7:30.
Sure, at the very beginning of the mic.
Yeah, and all the comedians felt it too. They were like, "Fuck."
Yeah, here we go.
Yeah, and so I got up on stage after him, and I was just like, well, we'll just knock out some obvious stuff because it's a little weird in here. I was like, we're watching American Idol on mute with no subtitles. That's fun. Like, and they laughed at that because I was like, oh fuck, like I don't even know what to talk about.
Yeah.
But we were at a bar, volume all the way down while the mic was going on, no subtitles, watching American Idol.
Right.
So it was like,
why not point that out?
Yeah, turn on SportsCenter or something.
Right.
Something that people don't need to listen to. They
can
be there, like, but no, you can't do that with American Idol. So it's like, that's funny. I don't know if other people find it funny, but I think it's a little silly. This is what we've and then they changed the channel
after that.
Yeah, like in the middle of my set, I sat back down. I was like, they put something else on.
Yeah, exactly. Now I'm gonna ask you this question, and then I gotta plug my my laptop in.
No, you're good.
What do you think about? Because I had alluded to the fact that I wanted to talk about this.
Yeah.
Comedians putting their specials on YouTube. I think it's a great fucking thing.
Like a special, not just like a 5-minute clip. You mean like a special?
Like a full special, like we said, Mark Normand, Shane Gillis did one.
I know Hannibal Buress.
Buress.
A couple that I'm aware of, 1 or 2, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's great.
Yeah.
Because for one, like, you got to do like what's good for you. You know what I mean? It may be.
My head's in the way.
No, it's all good. It's all good. But like you have to do.
All right, I'm back.
You have to do what's right for you. For some people, it's a thing that I think it was. I want to say it was Mark Normand. I may be wrong. Pretty sure it was Mark Normand. He said that there were bigger companies that turned him down for his special because they were like, we're trying to get more diverse. And
Right.
they were like, we don't need
Another white guy.
Another white guy.
Yeah.
So we want more diversity in the stand-ups that we have. So he was just like, well, fuck it then. No one wants it. I'm just going to put it on YouTube so that way my fans can enjoy it. For one, people they still get to enjoy your comedy. Like, the fans appreciate that.
Right.
100%. Because, I mean, why are we telling jokes if no one wants to hear them?
Exactly.
That's... I go around at mics and I thank people who weren't even there to see comedy, but they were quiet and respectful. And so I'm like, hey, thanks for, laughing, having a good time. You know what I mean? So I think it's a great thing to do. I don't have an hour to put up, so I haven't done it myself, but
right.
I definitely see the appeal in doing it, and I completely understand why people would, because it's just the way to go.
Well, I mean, we're living in a time where I can have a podcast, you can have a podcast, anybody can put anything up that they want. So the power is kind of taken away from HBO and Netflix and Amazon and the people who would buy these specials in the past, or that would give these comics deals to do a special. Whereas now, YouTube is so fucking big that if you're already a nationally headlining comedian who has a fan base, who's been on the things that you're supposed to be on, you were on Late Night, or you were on Joe Rogan, or you were on this or that, someone co-signed you, whatever the fuck it was. Now you kind of built an audience to watch your show, to watch your YouTube special, essentially.
Right.
And now they're going to come out to see you. You're giving them something for free. Here's a completely free special. You don't need a membership. The comic makes money on it, most likely, as long as they don't get demonetized by YouTube's fucking draconian ideas on what should be and what shouldn't be allowed to be said. Right. Another conversation.
Yeah.
But I think it's fucking awesome that comics can literally, at any level, put out an hour anywhere. You can put an hour out on Spotify, just audio. You can put an hour out, like we said, on YouTube, all over the fucking place.
Oh yeah, and it's great.
Yeah.
It's especially for someone who's kind of in between. There's a comic, and I may get his name wrong, but I feel really confident about it. It's Drew Lynch. He's a comic, and he's got a stutter.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure I watched his hour special on YouTube. Pretty sure it was YouTube. And, dude, he killed for an hour. And that's not like a known guy. Like, he's not Mark Normand, Joe Rogan, Dave Chappelle. Like, he's not on their level. But he's really, really funny. And it just works so well. And I'm like, oh, I'm glad I got to watch that for an hour. Because if I didn't get to see the hour special, I'd be hunting YouTube for, 5-minute clips.
Right.
Trying to just enjoy this guy's, stage presence, the way he addresses it, and he doesn't even talk about the fact that he stutters the whole time. Like, he addresses it and makes jokes about it, but he does it so well that I asked people about it before. I was like, have you seen this guy? And they were like, no, I don't know who that is. I'm like, you need to watch it. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
It's good for people on that level.
There's so few people that get to the level of who you just named, Dave Chappelle and Joe Rogan and Mark Normand. And those first two guys, Chappelle and Rogan, I mean, they've been in it for 20 years, 20 plus years.
And they've changed the game.
Yeah. And they've changed them. They've reinvented themselves throughout the process, which is, I believe, an important thing for an artist to do.
Oh, yeah.
You don't want to get stale. But then even Mark Normand, I mean, he's in his 30s. He's far younger than the other two guys.
He's younger, for sure.
And he's probably been doing it, 10 15 years, 10, 15 years.
Probably around there.
And he's fucking phenomenal. Like, it puts into perspective how long you really have to do the shit.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
yeah.
to get to a point. And even then, like a guy like Tony Woods. I don't know if you know who Tony Woods is.
I can't picture him, but I know him, yeah.
He's like, and he's incredible. He's incredibly polished, super smooth, great fucking comic, but doesn't have a special.
Yeah.
Like, doesn't have an hour special because he's a little older, and he may come from the generation that is waiting for like a Netflix or a Comedy Central or an HBO to reach out. And now we're at a point where he could have his own fucking special if he, put in the time and whatever the fuck else.
Yeah.
It's also about wanting to do it. Like, he might just be comfortable being a fucking phenomenal theater comic.
Yeah.
That's the other thing.
You just have to... If you're not happy while you're doing it, especially in comedy, then why are you doing it?
Right.
Like, because then you don't want it. So if he's on a level where he's like, I enjoy it in the capacity that I do it, then why change it? You know what I mean? Maybe he thought about doing stuff bigger than that, did like an arena or something, and was like, you know what? No.
Yeah.
That's not me. And then went to his theaters and was like, that's good right there. Or people who just road comics doing comedy clubs and stuff, and they're like, this is
Content.
this is how I like to live. I like going around hitting comedy clubs, making a few $100. I'm not like killing it financially, but I'm enjoying myself.
Right.
And that's important.
Which is, I'm finding our generation to be in that sort of mindset. Because you're what, 21, 22?
24.
Oh, okay. Fuck it. We're the same age then.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought you were, I don't know why I thought you were a little younger.
I started comedy later than you. You started in like 18, 19, right?
That's when I first started comedy.
Yeah.
I had like a pretty long fucking hiatus, if we want to call it that.
Yeah, right.
I call it my pussification period, where I was just, I don't know, I was I was hyper concerned about what other people thought. And then obviously once you get to a certain age, it's like, who gives a fuck?
Oh, yeah.
People are barely listening anyway.
Yeah.
So, just in general, not even when you're doing comedy. Like, you ever have a thought where you're like, oh, I was so stupid in that moment, that was awkward, that was weird. Fucking 2 days later, that person doesn't remember. Nobody remembers.
Oh, 100%. And I think that realization is, like, I feel like my stage presence is very, very good for someone who's been in my experience level.
Yeah.
And it's just, for one, I was in the military, so, like, I've just, you get the shit kicked out of you. I went through boot camp before they, like, made it way more pussified.
Okay.
It was when I was in, but I've heard that it's changed even more now.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably with every generation. Like,
oh, yeah. I mean, that's just how it goes.
Yeah.
But, and so that definitely made a difference in just, like, being self-confident. But I've always been, like, a confident person.
Right.
But then it just got to the point where I was like, I don't really care what other people think. Like, I'm just going to say whatever, and it might not work out. But that's kind of how it goes. Like, but you're right, you do just reach a certain point where you're just like, fuck it. Whatever,
Yeah. But, like I was saying, I think our generation is one that's embracing time over money. Like, time well spent over money made, maybe. I mean, don't get me wrong, nobody wants to be fucking broke.
Yeah.
No matter how happy you are, nobody wants to be fucking...
Yeah,
you want to be able to live, you know? Which, again, another conversation, but sucks that that's even what it has to be. Like, you have to work to live. It's like, what's that shit over Auschwitz? There was like a sign that said, like, work will make you free or something. It's some fucking...
That's the first I've heard about it.
Really? Yeah, no, there was a sign. I think it was above Auschwitz. It was in Hebrew, too.
You see, I can't study that stuff because I look like I was on the German side.
Right.
So I can't have knowledge about the Holocaust.
Yeah, it just doesn't work.
Yeah, they'll be like, all right, that's suspicious.
You had an uncle, didn't you?
Yeah.
But we're kind of now. I guess you can say there's people like in the '60s or whatever that would hop in a van and just drive across the country,
Yeah.
but they wouldn't make like a lifestyle out of that. I think a lot of people in our generation are buying those like tricked out fucking Sprinter vans
Yeah.
where it's nicer than this fucking apartment that we're in right now. And they have like a remote job. They can just fucking fuck around on their thing and they drive all over the place. Like, I feel like we're one of the first we might be the first generation since like, I don't know, the gold rush
Right.
to be able to live wherever the fuck we want and still make a living for ourselves.
Yeah, and that's great
Yeah.
in some capacity. I mean, there's pros and cons to it, I would say, because you still need people doing that dirty, lousy shit that no one wants to do. Someone
Right.
has to do that stuff, or we fucking fall apart.
Right.
If everyone was a comedian.
Yeah.
Or
If everyone followed their dreams,
we'd
how...
be screwed.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
We'd have trash in the streets.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you need someone who doesn't do that. But I do agree that our generation pursues it much more
Yeah.
on the happiness side of stuff. And I say, me personally, I do that definitely. I have enough money that I'm comfortable, but it's not that I was like, oh, I don't care about money. I was just like, I'm going to make my money doing things that I enjoy.
Right.
Like, I'll sacrifice financially now to more than likely gain later on.
Yeah.
Like, I enjoy cooking, so I work in a restaurant, and I don't make crazy money. Like, most of my coworkers are, you know, in high school, just out of high school. Like, I'm 24, and I'm one of the oldest employees.
Right.
There's a couple that are older than me, but I'm one of the oldest employees at 24. And so they're not paying, like crazy.
Sure.
Like, but I make enough money for what I need to do. I don't hate going into work every day to make my money. And I still have, like, they accommodate me doing comedy. Like, and they're supportive. They're like, we think that's awesome. Like, I've skipped open mics because we did, like, a fucking talent show.
Yeah.
For work one time. And I was like, oh, I'm going to go do stand-up at the talent show. It's not going to go great because it's not a comedy room.
Yeah.
But I'm like, it gives them the opportunity to, like, listen to some jokes, and I definitely pursue happiness and money, but I want my money to come from something that I enjoy.
Yeah.
Because I've seen people be miserable, but being like, I have no choice.
Right.
Like,
That's
yeah.
That's a hell on earth, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Having to do some shit that you like need to do to survive, and it be some shit that you don't really want to do.
Yeah.
Like, it's one thing being, we want to be comics, right? We want to be professional comics. We want to get paid. So it's one thing struggling, being a road comic, living in your car, making $200 a week.
Right.
At least it's a means to an end in our mind.
Yeah.
But when there's people who are just, they fucking load trucks at FedEx because they have to.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Was that what you wanted to do? Probably not. You're probably in a position where you have to.
Right.
And I guess it's different when, you have a family. Like, some people want to have a family, and that's a different story.
Yeah.
Because there's a different motivation there. But when it's, if you're a guy who's all by his fucking self, who just has to slave away, like, that's a hell. Like, that's awful.
No, just
Yeah.
make the sacrifice and be happy.
Yeah.
Like, that's just how it goes.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a job at the post office.
Charles Bukowski style.
Yeah. And I was just like, dude, like, the benefits are great.
Yeah.
It's a federal job, so my military retirement gets tacked on to the end of the post office retirement, which is like a big plus.
Oh, hell yeah.
So I can retire at 40 whatever, and have 23, 26 whatever it was years of retirement, like, to pay out on, which is great at that age. But then when you flip it, I was like totally miserable. Like,
Yeah.
never looked forward going into work.
Right.
And I was just like, I can't do this. Like, I can't be this unhappy going to work every day.
Yeah.
And I was the next one up to go full time. And they were like, stick it out. It could be 2 months away. Like, one guy's talking about retirement. And then you could get that full time position. And I was just like,
Yippee.
I want it.
Yeah.
I was like, I do 1 day a week now, and I fucking hate it.
Yeah.
Like, I can't do this 5 to 6 days a week. I'm miserable, and it's not worth it, you know?
It's funny how, like, people wave that shit in front of your face. Yeah. Like, you know, especially family. Not always.
Yeah.
But some family, they're like, what are you doing? You're doing a podcast? Like, you getting paid for that? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, go get a fucking job, you know? And then in my mind, again, another thing our generation is kind of accepting, it's like, we get paid shit comparatively to what things cost, right? Yeah. Like you hear, you know, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. We made, you know, 70 cents an hour. Well, that's cool because gas is fucking a nickel a gallon. You know, like that shit doesn't apply necessarily today. Don't get me wrong. Right. There's, you know, you have to grind. You have to find something to work toward. Oh, yeah. But just to work, just working just to work, it's just to prove that I'm not lazy to you. Like, what the fuck? I'm working a shit job that I hate. I'm making no money. Why? Because I get benefits. Like, that's the whole thing. Oh, we got benefits. Come work for us. You get time. You get to ask us when you get time off. Like, I don't know. It's weird.
It's super weird. And the way that I found a way, like, how to explain it to myself, or at least to other people, is that I was like, look, if I live in a small town as I get older, it's going to be because I want to live in a small town, not because I can't live somewhere else.
Right.
And it's a huge, huge difference. Like, if I'm like, I'm comfortable in my, like, in suburbia hell, you know what I mean, with the neighbors and the fenced-in yard so my dog and kids can run around. Like, if that's what I want, then that's great. But I don't want to be like, oh, I couldn't make it in New York or LA, just, you know, the two biggest cities, or fucking Miami or something. Like, if I want to live in a bigger city, I can.
Right.
But I'm choosing not to. And it's a huge difference between choosing to be somewhere or
being forced to. Yeah. Being stuck. That's, again, it's a fucking terrible position to be in. Yeah. Terrible. Now, another thing, since we're on the conversation of livelihood, another thing that I find that's tough when you're doing comedy is finding a way to make money that. So I'm also finding that a lot of comics just subsist. They just do enough to do comedy. Yeah. Like, pay their bills and do comedy. You can't do much else. If you're really dedicated to this shit, like, you need to have your nights pretty much open. Yeah. And you work in a restaurant. I also work in a restaurant. I've only worked in restaurants. I have a fucking college degree too, so that tells you how much those are worth. Yeah. So, a good one too, like a fucking finance degree, the ones that they tell you to go and get. So,
you know who else is like that?
Yeah, who?
You know Mark Anthony?
Maybe.
Mark Anthony Lewis?
Yes.
Dude,
yeah.
He has I want to say he has a master's degree in writing.
Ugh.
He does not.
Doesn't apply anywhere.
No, I think he told me, he's like, what does he do? He, like, does, like, blood drives or something.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Yeah, he collects blood. I was like, that's what you do? He's like, why?
He's a phlebotomist.
Just like, totally, like, has nothing to do with what he went to school for. But he writes
very well.
Comedy.
Yes.
So.
Turns out, kind of helped.
Yeah. Helped him there, because I'm dumb. I don't know. Like, I make stuff up, or I just say stupid things, but it works for me. Yeah. But I know I don't write good jokes because I'm not a good writer. Right. So I'm like, I have to just find another way to come up with my material. Like,
or you get better at writing, which is another option. You know, you just do it. You just do it more because. You know, I'm the same way, I guess, as a kid. When it came to school, I was more writing and history as opposed to science and math.
Yeah, okay.
So I like to write. Didn't necessarily mean I was good at it.
Right.
But you find, I mean, if there's zero difference between your 5th grade fucking book project and your fucking capstone thesis for your bachelor's program, then you're
Right.
probably a fucking idiot.
Yeah.
Like, there's no hope. You've been writing all that time and you didn't get any better. Like, so it's the same case. Like, the
Yeah.
more you try to write, the more you try to write funny shit, the more you try to write jokes in a jokey way,
Okay, yeah.
or if you just, another thing that I find helpful is if you write about a topic, some shit that you heard was funny or something that you thought was funny, and you just write like an essay. It doesn't even need to be funny.
Just flush it out, yeah.
You'll find something in there that you can work with. I'll find that. You know what I'm saying?
No, that's smart. I
Yeah.
haven't thought about it that way because when I tried writing jokes to begin, I was like, man, I either can't come up with anything or it's just not great. But I was like, but when I'm writing in high school, when I'm writing my essays in high school because I didn't fucking go to college. I went to culinary school online. Like
Nice.
I didn't go, like so I'm like I don't fucking know how to write stuff, but I was like, and I didn't read any of the shit I was supposed to, but I was like, how was I good at getting those writing essays done? I was like, I can like bullshit my way through an essay.
Right.
So then I just take one thing and I'm like, let me bullshit this into a joke. Or something like that, where I'm like, I kind of do it on the fly, and then I'll sit and think on it, or I'll go to the gym, and your brain's always working on stuff. If you give it a problem, it's just gonna, whether you're working on it or not, you're
Right.
working on it. And that's how I would come up with a lot of stuff, where I like just sitting like in between sets at the gym, and I'd just be like, you know what, that's a funny thought right there.
Yeah.
That tags onto that, like it'll just come to me that way.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, that happens too. I mean, no matter how much you write, how often you write, it all comes from fucking some random place.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying be like Jerry Seinfeld, sit in a room and looking, oh, wow, a clock. Here's a fucking joke about a clock. That's what he fucking does.
That's insane.
That's why he has so many jokes about, like, stupid little nuanced things that we do as people. And that's how he does it. But for some people, you hear, like, I write on stage, or I do podcasts and it gives me ideas, or I sit down and write. Yeah. And I think there's valuable things to all those.
Right.
You can't create a full bit if you don't write it all. Like, how you gonna, how you gonna remember anything?
Yeah. No, okay. I didn't think about it that way. Like, I write stuff down, and as I'm writing it down, I'm like, okay, like, let me tweak this.
Exactly.
I should say this here. So I didn't think about it that way. It's the that base level that's where I struggle of like, what am I writing about?
Right. Yeah.
But even like Jerry Seinfeld, I saw a video. He was talking about, I don't remember the joke exactly. I think it's in one of his newer specials. I want to say it's in like 23 Hours to Kill. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
And it's a bit about Pop-Tarts. And I watched a video on it, and he was like, it took me 2 years to write that bit on Pop-Tarts. And it's like 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah.
It's not a lot. I'm like, God damn, like 2 years to write that much
2 minutes.
material? Like, but with him, every word matters.
Exactly.
It's fine-tuned.
Yes.
I'm like, that's not me.
Yeah.
Like, if I tried to do that, I would sound like I'm reading a script.
Right.
Like there's no, it's not casual. Like it's not how I act.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So it's not me being on stage. Like, that's just me trying to be Jerry Seinfeld.
Right.
As opposed to me being me. Like,
yeah, which is most important.
Yeah.
No matter who your influences are, you can take little bits and pieces, but if it's not who you are, then you're just playing a fucking character,
Yeah.
Which at the beginning is kind of part of the game, because you don't necessarily know who you are as a comic. Like, you know who you are as a person, and you try your best to have that convey or have that come through your material. But I mean, you barely know when you're first starting. Again, your main focus should be to just be fucking funny.
Oh yeah.
Do it in a way that's conducive to who you are, but you don't really know who you are as a comic yet.
Yeah.
But through that process and through years of doing mics and doing spots and refining and writing and building good habits, which is why I think writing in the beginning is important, because
Right.
when you get to a point of having an hour or having so long, when your sets get longer, you need to have written shit. Like,
Yeah.
you know, you can't just do crowd, you can't just rely on your ranting skills. That's part of it. When you see it at the highest level, when you see these guys at the highest level doing an hour, that shit is worked out from fucking beginning to end. Some guys take 2 years to do it, like you said.
Yeah, it's
You know.
Kevin Hart. I watched. I want to say it was Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
He talked about his process for shooting a special, and he's arguably he's top 5 comic right now.
Yeah.
For sure. Like,
especially when it comes to fame.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I think he's.
He might be the.
I think he's made the most money.
Yeah.
Recently. So he's big deal, and so obviously you're gonna listen like, oh, what's his process, because it's working.
Yeah.
Like, and he was. I think it's 2 years for him to do a new special.
Yeah.
And the first year is coming up with the hour, and then he's like, all right, now I'm doing mics. He's like, once the mics are good enough, now he goes, he does comedy clubs, and then he's like, once those are good enough, theaters, and then
arenas,
he builds his way up like that. And he's like, and if it doesn't work at one level, I bump it back down, and I work it back out at the previous level. So he's like, if I go to clubs and it's not working, I'm back at mics.
Right.
Like, that's how it goes. Like, but it's a grind.
Yeah, I mean, they all have a different time, like, length. Yeah. It's crazy to hear, because you hear, like, again, to go back to Carlin, every year he came up with a new hour, which is fucking crazy.
That's insane.
I mean, he said at the end of the year, he throws all his shit out, all the shit that he came up with last year, he gets rid of it, and then does a whole fucking new hour in a year. Wild. That's why he had 14 fucking HBO specials.
I didn't know. Yeah, he's got.
I think it's 14.
I've scrolled through, and I never paid attention to really how many it was.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
But scrolling through, I'm like, God damn, he's got a lot of them on here. Like,
yeah.
what's the deal? You know what I mean? Like,
as far as longevity goes, he has to be up there. You know, as far as longevity.
Well, you know, I would say Dave Chappelle, just because he had such a long gap.
Yeah.
Between like Killing Them Softly and The Closer.
Right.
He's been doing it a long time too. Not as long as Carlin, but a long time. But he's probably the greatest at stuff you're not supposed to make fun of.
Right now, hell yeah.
And
he's top tier.
It, and he makes it funny every time.
Yeah.
Like but he makes you care about what he's talking about too. I don't know if it's just his voice or his demeanor or whatever it is, but not to mention the fact that he's wildly intelligent.
Right.
But he talks about stuff that you're not supposed to talk about, and he's been doing it since the 90s. Like,
well, he's got solid points too, so it makes you listen. Yeah. Like, it's not like where he's coming from is from some bullshit place. Like,
yeah.
He has a well thought out point. His writing is obviously on point. Like, a lot of his recent specials, like the 3 that he did through Netflix.
Yeah, yeah.
He pretty much had something to say aside from the jokes on all 3 of those.
Yeah, they're about something.
Yeah. Which I heard this somewhere else. I don't know who said it, but in regards to comedy, if your main objective on stage is to be funny. Number 1, above all, be funny. Number 2, if you can't be funny, be interesting. I don't remember where I heard that.
I've heard that before too, though.
Yeah. So that's where you get guys who they're able to convey a message outside of the laughs because it's an interesting take. At least that's what I think.
Yeah.
You know, at least from what I see, because you hear like a Carlin say something outrageous, like I like a lot of people to die, but he couples it with being funny and having takes that people resonate with.
Right.
You know,
and you have to be memorable.
Yeah.
Anyone can be funny on stage, but if you're not memorable, it's not going to get you anywhere. And the memorable part is definitely hard to achieve.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I think, but that's what makes, like, you have to be interesting to be memorable. You can be funny and not be interesting.
Yeah.
At all. And then they'll just forget. Be like, oh, whatever. He was funny. And then they'll see you after the show and be like, oh, yeah, you were good. No idea who you are.
Sure. Well, shit, man. We've gone for a little while.
Yeah.
I'd say it's time we wrap this bitch up. We got mics to get to, hopefully.
I'm going to try anyway.
Yeah.
I'm going to try.
Where can people find you? If you got socials, you can go ahead and let them know.
I'm on, Facebook, I guess, for one. Just Patrick O'Connor on Facebook. I'm the guy that looks like me.
Right.
And Instagram, TikTok. I'm trying to remember what those. I'm pretty sure Instagram is Pat O'Connor 12. I want to say. Hopefully, I'm not getting these wrong.
We'll put it all in the description anyway. It'll be fine.
Yeah, it's something like that. And I knew you were gonna ask that too. I was like, oh, I should double check, make sure I got these right, and then I fucking didn't.
Right.
Yeah, I'm on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. Not on YouTube yet, but
soon
once
to
I
be.
get that hour worked out.
Yeah.
You can find me on there, but that's it.
You got any spots at all?
Spots?
I always let people do that too.
Nothing coming. Oh, I've got doing Comics Roadhouse.
Nice.
On June 30th.
Okay.
Doing Comics Roadhouse.
Is that a bringer? You need people to show up?
That's a bringer.
There you go. Show up,
but,
people.
But that's my soonest one outside of hosting.
Oh, right. Hosting spots.
The 22nd. After that, I'm doing a Pub on Park in Cranston. That'll be on August 7th.
And you're hosting that? It's an open mic or it's a show?
No, that's a show.
Oh, cool.
That's a show. So
nice.
I got John Prada put me on a bunch of stuff. I just can't remember because they're a couple months away, so I don't have them all memorized.
Me too.
Yeah.
I got a couple of them too.
But for June, soonest ones are that June 30th or hosting at Rick's on the 22nd. Unless I catch a guest spot.
Cool.
Between here and there, I think that's where I'm at.
Sounds like fun. Pick up that podcast shit again. I'm telling you, the more you do it, even if you do it alone, it works out the speaking muscle, at very least.
I didn't think about it that way either, so that's pretty smart. Yeah, just being like, oh, let me just talk.
Yeah.
Because you come up with stuff when you're just bullshitting by yourself.
Exactly.
Talk about the Celtics.
Yeah.
You'll come up with fucking something.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
As for me, guys, the only show I have is the Industry Room, June 18th. So, Broadway Comedy Club should be fun. Yeah, I think that's it. All right, motherfuckers, we're done. Peace. Hey, I'm back to reiterate all the stuff that I said at the top of the show. Follow and subscribe. Bye-bye.